Good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you for the privilege. Here we go. Thank you, Mimi. There you go. That's better. Thank you for the privilege of letting me speak today. The ancient Greek aphorism, "Know thyself," was inscribed long ago on the portal of the temple at Delphi. Knowing the self was thought to be prerequisite to all subsequent knowledge. Philosophers have pondered this question for centuries. In the end, Socrates believed that the only true wisdom resided in knowing that you know nothing. Aristotle came to a similar conclusion. The more you know that you don't know. There is comfort in that profound insight. I hope that the title of my talk, I thought I knew myself, manages to convey the appropriate humility, for it begs the question that the self is even knowable. Nevertheless, I did think that I knew myself pretty well. As a psychoanalyst, I spent many years of training at the Psychoanalytic Institute in Boston. Working through the losses and abandonments of my early childhood was part of that job. The loss of love that was their consequence is the core theme of my book. I managed to stow away these painful feelings until I was 50, when suddenly midlife was upon me. Only then did I begin my analytic journey. And when the formal analysis came to an end 30 years ago, I thought I was done. Apparently, I was not. 11 years ago exactly, November 30, 2014, I stood in this very spot. I talked about a new and vital part of me, a part of me that I just recently discovered, that I had a sense of shame about myself. It was something I'd never known and didn't want to know. It was a painful, unwanted discovery. And in this book that just a month ago first saw the light of day, I did it again. I still neglected that vital part of myself. Why was that? I hope my answer to this question will shed light, as it had not only on my own inner experience, but also on that of others who may have shared a similar fate. In my book, some of the things I revealed about myself were things I had always dreaded revealing. The wish to be known, yet not known, was a conflict that haunted me most of my life. What if someone were to ask me where I was born? What if they managed to connect the dots and knew about the Japanese concentration camps? So here in brief is my story. 84 years ago, on December 7th, 1941, Pearl Harbor, a strategic American naval base on the island of Oahu, was decimated in a sneak attack by Japanese aircraft. And in February 1942, Japan invaded Indonesia, an archipelago of islands in Southeast Asia. At the time of the invasion, Indonesia, then known as the Dutch East Indies, was a colony of the Netherlands, and Java, one of its central islands, my family home. My father, Chief of Naval Intelligence, was forced to flee for his life in the dead of night. The Japanese wanted him, dead or alive. The very next morning when I woke up, my father was gone. 3 weeks later, I turned 4. Soon after my father made his escape, the feared Kempeitai, the name of the Japanese secret police, came to our door, their bayonets drawn. They searched our house and they took away my mother. They tortured her and burned her shins, with live cigarettes, again and again, to make her tell them of my father's whereabouts. Eventually they did let her go because she did not know where he had gone. But when she came back, she found my brother unable to move his limbs, struck down with polio. His life was saved by an iron lung, and for a time he did lose use of his arms and shoulders. For fear of an epidemic, we were placed in quarantine and left in terrifying isolation. Everyone we knew had already been imprisoned. But then we too were herded into a truck and carted off to camp. In one fell swoop, I lost the only home I had ever known. I don't remember them coming to our door, but I do remember a huge rabid dog slowly advancing down our driveway. White foam frothing at the mouth, fangs glistening. Mesmerized, I watched him approach, nose pressed hard against the glass, doors all locked. My mother told me that never happened. I may have created this memory, a memory less frightening perhaps to take the place of what really happened. Over the next 3 years, sanitation became a thing of the past. Starvation, death, and disease the norm. My mother became a Christian Scientist. She taught us to ignore our hunger and our fears and made us strong and resilient, able to survive. It might surprise you to know that physical deprivation, relentless hunger, the stink of open sewers in the heat, and bodily decay, even the loss of our freedom, did not do lasting damage to my soul. After all, we were in it together, and no one was saved. I did not see my father again until the war was over, a brief interlude, unalloyed joy, followed by years of prolonged, recurring absences, when I struggled not to feel forgotten. My father, mother, brother, and I didn't become a family unit again until I was 12 years old. It was the loss of my father's love, the awful ache I felt from my brother's pain, and the loss of my mother's emotional attunement to me as her child, which hurt indeed. Yes. Indeed, she had legitimate, more pressing concerns. But for me, it was that loss which hurt. Before I wrote my book, I would worry. What if people knew about these awful camps and wanted to know what happened to me? What had it been like for me, they might ask. When the conversation couldn't be avoided, I'd fake nonchalance, but inside I'd want the ground to swallow me up. And yet I did want people to know. That early history is an integral part of me, part of who I am, and even more so, a part of the person I became. And so, with the help of my analyst, I overcame my fear of exposure, and this story became part of my book. I should mention that this fear of exposure of which I speak was not always part of my life. For a very long time, my early childhood was either repressed or dissociated, an irrelevant, unimportant, not me part of me, until I reached midlife. Eventually, this intermittent but unavoidable fear of exposure began to creep up on me. It would loom up at every new encounter. I learned to cope with it in different ways, mostly by finding ways to circumvent the fear. I would explain the fear to myself in different ways. I would tell myself that I hated the morbid curiosity that my story would arouse, or that I hated the fact that it made me feel objectified somehow, suddenly different from the person they thought they knew, a sudden shift in their perception of me. real or imagined, it would alter my perception of myself as seen through their eyes. But these explanations were always about them and not about me. The feeling evoked in me was a nameless feeling, yet all the more powerful and painful because of it. At the same time, I did know that this feeling had nothing to do with them. And so, 11 years ago, here, I was able to root out the name of that painful dread. An epiphany after endless years of working through a laundry list of losses. I had a name for it. And that the name of that feeling was shame. But in my book, that part of my story has still gone missing. When in 2014, I told my analyst about this talk, about that unwanted, shameful part of me, she asked me, why didn't you ever bring that up with me? The reason is quite simple. Never once did I experience that shameful feeling in the presence of my analyst. Instinctively, I knew that she would never judge me for my truth, whatever that truth might be. And that is why, in the safety of her presence, that was a feeling I never felt. Shame is a very bad feeling. You want to wash it off, but you can't. It sticks to you, it clings to you, it makes you feel hateful. You don't want anyone to know you have it. It's such a bad feeling that you may not even want yourself to know that you have it. That is what happened to me and happens to other people as well. I believe that this discovery about myself is a feeling I share with countless others, other victims of abuse, whatever form it takes, whether it be sexual, physical, mental, or emotional. Others who suffer from abuse as I did, but who do not understand the deepest root of their suffering, as I did not understand it. Because it makes no sense. On those occasions when I did manage to talk about the things my Japanese captors did to us, it was not my audience which made me feel ashamed. It was a feeling that came purely from within, and it was mine and mine alone. But I couldn't name the feeling because it made no sense. Our traditional concept of shame is that it's something we feel when we have done something wrong or reprehensible. The innocent have no need to feel shame. Why should they? Yet they often do. As Louis B. Smead, a renowned Christian author, ethicist, and theologian in the Reformed tradition wrote, the difference between guilt and shame is very clear, in theory. We feel guilty for what we do. We feel shame for what we are. Let me backtrack for a moment and finish my story and get a glass of water. Let me backtrack for a moment and finish my story. Where in all of this was the shame? This is what I came to talk to you about, and I will tell you. In retrospect, it is crystal clear that the intent of our victors, our Japanese captors, was to humiliate us and to show us their contempt. And they succeeded more than I could ever have known. There was a certain ritual. We called it the kampulan. Unpredictably, it could happen any time of day, whenever they felt like it. In an instant, we'd have to drop whatever we were doing and obey. Kyotsuke! The soldier would suddenly bark. Quickly, we'd have to come to attention and form a straight line as he approached. Kei! He'd yell. Eyes lowered, we'd have to bow down deep from the waist as he passed. If you refused, you were beaten on the back with the barrel of his gun. "Nare!" he would scream. Finally, permission to stand up and trade me. I could still hear them shouting, "Kyotsuke, kiri, nare." As a child, I was never aware of the shame I felt. Reflexive compliance was all I knew, nothing more. My shame was cloaked in fear. Conscious awareness of my shame did not rise to the surface until recently. I mean, the last couple of years, last 10 years perhaps. After all, why would I feel ashamed? I didn't do anything wrong. But they treated me and my mother, all of us, as worthless. Therefore, I must be worthless. Or so I must have thought, and I am ashamed of my worthlessness. The more vulnerable and defenseless the victim of abuse, the greater the shame. Can anyone think of a twist of irony more evil than this? It is no wonder that the shame of which I speak goes unrecognized, because it makes no sense. And yet it does. For I have never known anyone, any person, who has reluctantly come to view himself as a victim, a hapless victim of family violence perhaps, or of a painful and relentless prejudice, who does not, in the very same breath and from the very core of his or her being, tell me, "I hate feeling like a victim." Is it any wonder that the abused hold on to their secret? This person may have been a young woman who succumbed to the sexual advances of her priest, the one she had been taught to call father. Or a pre-adolescent boy who reveres his football coach and submits to the sex acts while in the locker room, naked in the locker room. Or an African-American person forced into slavery. As indeed my own mother was, planting and growing vegetables in the blistering heat, food to be consumed solely by our captors. If she stole as much as a tiny tomato, she would be beaten within an inch of her life. Or a schoolboy so bullied and belittled by his peers that he either wants to hurt himself or hurt others in retaliation. This is why I'm here today, why I am deeply grateful that there is a faith such as ours, which at its very core holds fast to the conviction that in this world of ours, true peace will only come when each and every one of us learns to uphold and respect the inner worth and dignity of every other human being. This is indeed the one thing we must teach our children and our grandchildren. This imperative goes above and beyond the injunction to love one another. If we teach our children to respect one another as he or she wants to respect him or herself, everything follows from that. Telling the truth is a form of respect. Taking our share but no more than our share is a form of respect. Protecting one another from hurt is a form of respect. Above all, honoring our differences is a form of respect. But to induce shame in another and to injure the self-worth of another, that is the greatest shame of all. Thank you. Thank you.